Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by Prize Picks.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe it's the 166th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, so thank you very much for listening, everybody out there. It's because of you that we keep on going here. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. You get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, so go to bostonsportsjournal.com, get a subscription and a membership there. You get to read all of my stuff. You can send in questions for the Q&A. It's really a great site where there's all kinds of awesome coverage of all the 4 major pro sports teams in Boston. With me today, I have a longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
I rink wrap.
You do rink wrap.
I blog on my little blog called Rink Wrap, and I do Bruins home games, the occasional road game, and the Four Nations games that are in Boston. I live blog that, so I'll be at the Garden on Thursday night, live blogging the Four Nations Championship, and write the occasional column, and obviously yesterday's news, and let's see what else. I do a lot of talking on the radio and stuff like Pucks with Haggs, and Hockey News uses me as well for their big issues.
There you go. Check all of that stuff out, and I will also be with Mick Thursday night at the Garden for the USA-Canada final, which is
baby,
pretty unbelievable. Like my wife and son are going too, Alyssa and Finn, and I got the tickets to the final months ago. Really not sure of how this tournament was going to go or what it was going to be like in a championship game. Taking the risk, it could have been like Sweden-Finland in the final. But it has turned into an amazing tournament with the dream scenario in the final after an awesome matchup in Montreal. And, from what I've heard, like tickets are going for over $1,000 a piece. So it's pretty crazy as far as the demand, I think, is as high as it's ever been for a hockey ticket in Boston, going back to probably 2011.
I took a little secondary tour on Sunday night. So anyway, I was like a Bruins game for Canada-Finland, and then was double that for USA-Sweden. And then the championship at that point, Sunday night, this is before the finals established, was double that. So like 4 times the Bruins game to get in Thursday night before they knew that it was Canada-US. Once that was clinched, someone came up to me and told me it's already jumped to like 1,100.
Yeah.
That was Monday afternoon.
Yep.
So who knows what it's going to be now? Yep. I haven't even looked.
Well over $1,000 each per ticket, from what I had heard. Let's talk about our sponsors, though. Speaking about those tickets, first let's talk about our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get into it, Mick. I guess we'll just take the most important news, the most pressing news right off the top. Charlie McAvoy reports came out after Monday night's loss to Sweden, which he did not play because of an upper body injury, that he was being hospitalized at Mass General for something that happened during the game, or something related to what was something that happened during the game. We come to find out there's reports out there that, and the Bruins confirmed it, I guess they had an infection, or at least the reports, I've certainly heard reports that it was an infection that he had, and he had to have a procedure for it. And he's going to be out week to week now. It's still unclear if it was like a separate injury that he suffered during the game and the infection was something related to, maybe it was something, a cut in the game, maybe it was something that happened previously to that. It's the whole thing is kind of unclear still at this point, is exactly what's going on, if it's 2 different things, an injury and an infection, or if they're related, or what's happening. But just that's another blow. Obviously, we hope Charlie McAvoy is okay. Though some of those infections can be pretty serious business. So we hope he's doing okay. It sounds like he's stabilized and everything's okay. But on top of that, You're talking about somebody that's probably going to miss some time now when they come back to playing for the Bruins. And this is another blow to a team that needed to go on an epic run coming out of the Four Nations if they were going to make the playoffs. And if they're missing McAvoy for a significant period of time, I feel like that's going to factor into the calculus on what they're going to do at the trade deadline as far as being buyers or sellers.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, but it's certainly crystallized in almost any Bruins fans' head by now. And this was a concern of a lot of people prior to the tournament.
Yep.
If you're Edmonton, you hold your breath every time Conor McDavid's on the ice. You may be more captivated by this moment because of what's at stake and the fact that the U.S. wins the World Juniors the way they do, and that Canada hasn't had a chance to best on best and keep their winning streak against the U.S. going, which has now been snapped. But they need this game, and if you're a Canadian, you're really thinking about these guys and thinking, I want you to get through it, but we got to win. And then the Oilers might be thinking about this differently once this is over if McDavid doesn't make it through healthy. In the case of the Bruins, it isn't the typical scenario for them. The odds are not in their favor to fall on the right side of the bubble when this is all over for a couple of reasons. But it really is a great illustration of why some people didn't want this tournament, including some religious season ticket holders that I'm friends with that are just like, why are they doing this to my season? Why do I have to worry about the money I put up for my season tickets to see these guys and they might get hurt in this thing? And now it's coming to life. And right at the time where they absolutely have to play their best hockey of the season to have any shot of being in a position on March 7th of hey, we think we can make the playoffs. And right now, your best defenseman is out. And there you are. And your 1A is already out. Yep. So this is a bad time for the Boston Bruins. Quick aside here. I don't know if I know that since Charlie McAvoy played the showdown on Saturday night in Montreal against Canada, which was won by the U.S., they had romped over Finland earlier in the week.
Yep.
And late in that game, Yoel Armia of the Montreal Canadiens hit McAvoy from behind with a post-whistle cross-check. Actually, might not have been post-whistle, but it was away from the puck. And he was going to go head first into the boards, and he missed the post and got it like right there. And he was pretty shaken up by it, and Canada responded pretty hard to it. It wasn't anything like what we saw at the beginning of Saturday night's game, but they really let them know they weren't happy. And U.S. did, not Canada.
Yep.
So this was the beginning of something that wound up becoming something else, maybe, and much worse. But I thought that was a bullet dodge. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure how this all happened with McAvoy.
Yeah, no. And I wonder if it was like, the infection part of it, we could sit here and speculate on what happened, how it happened, whatever. Like, I would almost suspect that an infection type thing like that would be related to being cut by a skate blade. Perhaps, like there might be some.
My first inclination too.
Yeah. So like, I think that's probably where that would come from. That's why I wonder if it's something separate from like, if he had some kind of injury just from throwing his body around like a battering ram in that Canadian game. And, being a big factor in the game, like he basically turned the momentum of that game when he like blew Connor McDavid up against the boards after he had scored on him and threw in a couple more heavy hits on Connor McDavid throughout the game and other players too. And really was a big part of the Americans winning that game, and that whole momentum shifting in that game was the way Charlie McAvoy played. And the sense I got was that he was pissed off because he kind of got burnt on that first Connor McDavid goal and didn't look great defensively on it. And I think he just got mad after that and decided he's not going to beat me again. And we're going to be really hard on their talent, really physical on their talent, and the guys that make things happen for them. And you could see the rest of the game that Team USA was all over Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid and really hard on them physically. And they just weren't as big of factors after that. And that's what you have to do. And they played it great. But I wondered if there was some kind of injury related to that, or did he get cut at some point? Even this could have happened back when he was playing with the Bruins, and it turned into an infection, at this point later on. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, the way McDavid hung on to him after that first thunderous hit on the sidewall that McDavid went down, he kind of hung on to McAvoy, and I'm wondering if maybe there's a skate cut somewhere in there.
Yeah. So that was my first suspicion too when you hear about infection. So I'm sure we'll find out more when he's finally healthy and when he comes back. There's still a lot of questions to be answered, but the bottom line is that just as they're getting Hampus Lindholm back, and he should be back skating when they have their little mini training camp, the Bruins, coming out of the Four Nations break, it's a natural opportunity to ramp him up, to get him ready to play, rather than rush him into games prior to that break. So right as you're getting Hampus Lindholm online, as we all suspect he's going to start playing coming out of this break, you thought you were going to have basically your full complement. You thought you were going to get everybody back and have this full roster ready for they're going to have to go like 17-8 or better, I would suspect, in the final 25 games to make the playoffs. All of a sudden now you're missing one of your best players. And I think this is just par for the course for the Bruins this season. It's been a lot of hits that they've taken. It's been a lot of one step forward and two steps back. It's been a lot of just when you think you're sort of hitting your stride or hitting the momentum, something else hits you and knocks you back a little bit.
Like Lindholm getting knocked out of the lineup
right.
when they would play when they were playing a little better.
Yeah. So I think, I think if I were running the Bruins now and I saw this happen after everything else that's happened, I would be selling. I'd be trading off players. Maybe you add somebody just to give them another piece of ammunition to compete, like somebody else can put the puck in the net, and you give up a nominal draft pick for that player. But any players that are in the long range plans that you can get something for, I'd be trading now. And I think this would be the final straw for me to kind of say, okay, we're going to be more sellers than buyers this trade deadline. And if we make the playoffs, great, but we're not going to sell out everything, and we're not going to give up anything of any kind of value to us in a long-term way in order to make a trade to help this team. And I feel like this being a significant injury to a key player, it would move the needle for me to finally say, okay, I think this season is not going to be our season. I think that kind of, it's okay to sort of have that mindset at this point based on everything we've seen. At least if I were running the team, that's the business decision I would be making. Yeah.
I mean, that's about as emphatic a punctuation mark as you can put on the Bruins' plight in 24-25. McAvoy going out of the lineup when they need him the most, and on the heels of playing the most inspired hockey we've seen him play in quite some time, and really actualizing in full all-out Charlie McAvoy, and then this happens, and it's like, wow. Can they catch a break? I don't think so. And if it hasn't been self-inflicted this year, it's been bad puck luck. And this is them. This is what should be on their yearbook.
Yep.
It's a collage of everything that's gone wrong.
Yep.
Because that is how this year will always be remembered. I think we're running out of runway here to turn it into something that ends really well. So all's well that ends well. I'm not seeing it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but we're running out of time to see it. And now we got a great big fat indicator here that it ain't coming.
Yep. I think this would be the final sign. If I were Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, this would have been the final sign from the hockey gods that we need to sell. We need to take a different approach and a different pathway and retool at the trade deadline based on, the reading all the tea leaves, including this last one. I think you had to be letter perfect coming out of the break if you're going to make the playoffs, and this is not going to allow you to do that. The USA Canada final Thursday night, they're going to be missing McAvoy. He's out for that. He's going to be out probably for some time when the Bruins come back. It seems like at least a few weeks. So that's a big blow for them. They may get Quinn Hughes back, which would be good.
Great player.
Yep.
Not the same kind of player.
No, but it's going to help their power play. I mean, they're going to be a much more dangerous power play with
yeah.
Quinn Hughes running that. And so that
he's pretty good
changes,
defensively.
Maybe that changes the tenor of the game a little bit too, from what we saw up in Montreal the first time around. But the Tkachuk brothers, I think, are both supposed to play, so that'll be interesting to see what they have in store, see what they have up their sleeve for the second game against Canada. Just how excited are you for this, Mick? And I know you talked about the season ticket holders being upset, and we're going to get into that. But one thing, I would just say this. I would say if you love hockey, if you love the game, if you want to see the game grow, if you want to see more people talking about the game, if you want to see more kids play, this is the kind of stuff you need to do. And this is the kind of stuff you should do. And it sells the game. Like they were talking about it on Around the Horn on ESPN yesterday. And it usually takes some kind of religious event in hockey in the NHL for them to be talking about the NHL and hockey on the airwaves anywhere nationally in the United States, as opposed to Canada.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that got people talking about hockey. And, it also makes it so much better as an option than like an all-star game to do something like this every once in a while. If you're going to do this in lieu of an all-star game, or you're going to do around the same time of the year as an all-star game, so much better. Like, I understand that, there's downsides to it, but like, if you actually love hockey, and I thought Mike Sullivan was really good actually talking about this after the game the other night, just how if you really enjoy the game and you love the game, this is what you want to see.
This comes along once in a blue moon, this kind of, the fact that you have such a electric player as McDavid and McKinnon nipping at his heels in this tournament, to have this kind of skill out there, to have the Tkachuk brothers, but really just to have such a generational talent as Connor McDavid, then that's an excellent time to have hockey showcased in this worldwide kind of way. The Tkachuk brothers certainly have done a great job as ambassadors, helping put the spotlight on these players by doing what they did at the beginning of the game Saturday night in Montreal. That this is like sometimes hockey is the best kept secret. There was the funniest tweet from some. I can't remember who the celebrity was, but he was an African-American celebrity who tweeted during a playoffs, maybe about, 10, 12, 15 years ago, white people been hiding hockey from us all these years. This shit lit, bro. And that tweet got so many views. I think it was probably, over hundreds of thousands of views. And because some people get a chance to see hockey at its best when it's on a stage like this. If those two things happen at once, because hockey's had these chances before, and a lot of times the city, the area of Boston metro market has been teed up for the Bruins on many an occasion during the new arena era that they just absolutely flopped and left it on the table. Or when the Red Sox and Patriots and Celtics are sagging and they're in great position to seize it, grab it, and get attention for themselves, and they didn't take it. It just seems like the timing for the Bruins in this case has always been kind of lame.
Yep.
When it came to this tournament and what happened Saturday night, that was a big bang. And so I enjoyed it. I hated the post lockout toxic preoccupation that the NHL had with why doesn't the world like us? Why don't people love our game? Please like us, please like us. So we put in the shootout, we do this, we do that, we change everybody's uniform, we change the rules. I hated all that. But sometimes it's just going to happen. And I felt like Saturday in this tournament, that was one of those moments. It was pissa.
Yep.
It was great to see hockey just absolutely show everybody what hockey looks like when it's really great, what it's supposed to look like, and it happened, and a lot of people happened to see it, and good for the NHL. I'm sure the NHL is pretty happy about what happened there too.
No question. And we're going to talk more about this, the Four Nations tournament. Let's take a break, though, to talk about our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun, and it's super simple. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, and they also offer MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the Prize Picks app and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get back into it, Mick. And you alluded to this a little bit, but Four Nations tournament, it's obviously been a huge hit with hockey fans. It's been highly successful on the ice, which a lot of that comes down to the players just giving everything that they've got in these games and really bringing their highest compete level. And you can see, because it's been so long since a lot of these players have been allowed to play in the Olympics, you can see some of that energy in these games. You can see the how much these NHL players had been dying to be in the Olympics and had missed it the last few go-rounds. And some of these guys had never been able to really play in high-stakes, highest-level international play, like the Kachuk brothers, those kinds of guys, since maybe World Juniors. So you could see all of that coming up, pouring out on the ice. Just they were competing as hard as they possibly could, and the level of hockey was so incredibly high. It makes for a great product on the ice. The NHL has stumbled onto something fantastic here because the NHL players have treated it like an Olympic-style event in that level of import. My question to you, is this the last time we're going to see it? Is the NHL owners going to say, we don't want this anymore because so many players have gotten hurt? There's been significant injuries to a bunch of teams. The players are playing to their credit so hard that guys are getting banged up. And I think if they continue to want this high a level and this quality of hockey, players are going to get hurt. And I think that is going to be a tough one to negotiate as far as doing this in the middle of the season and convincing NHL owners that this is good for everybody and certainly good for them. If all of a sudden they start losing players, they're going to help them get playoff purses and get playoff home games where they can, where they really make their money. So are we going to see this in the summertime? Are we never going to see this again? How do you think this is going to play out? How would you guess this is going to play out based on what we've seen? Because if they just cancel it outright, I think there's going to be a lot of fans that are going to be pissed. A lot of hockey people are going to be not happy. I'm sure the players are not going to be happy. Do they try to move it to the summertime instead of before the season starts instead of mid-season? There's a lot of factors at play here, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they used to have, obviously the Summit Series between Canada and the Soviets in the fall of September 72 was right before that 72-73 season. Yep. Bobby Orr wasn't quite ready to play after having surgery right after the Bruins won the Cup in New York in May. So he practiced with him but wasn't ready to play. So they managed to pull that out of an 8-game series winning in Russia, which was a tremendous triumph. And then the WHA had one in 74 and 73-74 season. And then there was this thing where individual Soviet teams like the Red Army and the Soviet wings toured the NHL for a series of exhibition games that had to be played very seriously. And one of the best periods of hockey I've ever seen was the 75-76 Bruins against the Soviet Red Army, which had the biggest embodiment of the CCCP, of that group that was on that team.
Yeah.
And Gilles Gilbert was in net. Bobby Orr had already played his 10 games. So it was really the revised version of the Bruins. And for 20 minutes, that was one of the greatest periods of hockey I've ever seen. It's on YouTube. People can look it up and watch it. Bruins versus Soviet Red Army, 1976 at Boston Garden. And that was this year that the Flyers had the famous game on network where the Russians were pulled off the ice because they were absolutely running them over, and it was dirty too. It was nasty. Canada celebrates what they call the greatest hockey game of all time on New Year's Eve of that tour when they tied the Soviet Red Army 3-3 at the Montreal Forum, Tretiak against Dryden. So there's just so much of history with international play. The one thing I'll say about international play is it's gotten harder and harder because of shared information. That the big bang of this was the Summit Series in 72. And in the 50 plus years since then, so much information has been shared. Russians playing junior hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
Americans playing in Europe.
You mean like training information and stuff like that, right?
Philosophical approaches to the game. The tectonic plates of hockey have merged so tightly that it's rare that we get to see the Swedes play as the Swedes, the Finns play as the Finns. The Czechs weren't in this tournament, but they have this. But back in the 70s, you didn't have to see the uniform logos to know who you were watching just because of how they played the game. It was like watching a guy comes in like Mike Tyson versus a guy who's going to stick and move like Larry Holmes or whatever.
Yep.
It's just there was styles, there was approaches to how you skate. Russians with the quick feet, Czechs with heavy legs and hard pushes and less steps, fewer steps, and you just had different styles that was so I didn't. These days, it's harder to find that, but it is fun to see a game with Finland versus Canada so that you can watch and see, okay, let's see how the Finns are coached, because they're not necessarily coached by NHL coaches.
Right.
They're coached by people who never left Europe. So they kind of have their epicenter of what they do, how they are as a team, how they think hockey, how they conceptualize it. I love that part of these tournaments.
Yep.
So for me, being a hockey nerd and a lifer, it was a lot of fun just to watch for the nuances.
Yes, I agree. All of that is interesting. And I do also agree with you that things have changed as far as everything sort of blending together a lot more, where there's not as much of a differentiation, I would say, between, a Russian player, a Swedish player, an American player, a Canadian player, and the style they play with as well. Like, it still can be a little different. And there's still focuses, I would say, in all the different nations as far as how they develop their players. But they all look pretty similar when they get to that level. What do you think? How do you think it's going to play out as far as the future of the Four Nations tournament? Do you think they'll end up doing this again? Do you think
that was your question, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That's all right. I was going to keep us on target, Mick.
Yeah, thank you. The NHL clearly wants a success like this to continue rolling it out, but I don't think we're going to see it. We're not going to be saturated with it or hit over the head with it annually.
No,
but I think that as a
once every 4 years, I think is great.
Right. Yeah. So you do it before an Olympic year.
Yeah.
And this year,
I equated it, Mick, to the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania. It's like the undercard before WrestleMania.
I guess for me, a big question is: let's just say that you don't have that U.S.-Canada showdown last Saturday night in Montreal. How do you feel about the tournament otherwise? Because you can't put that genie back in the bottle and let it back out later with the same thrill. You can look forward to it and it can be really good, but it'll never be what this one was. Just like 72 never came around again.
No.
Or the Miracle on Ice never came around again.
But we'll always be hoping that it's going to come back again because they did it that time. And that's what kickstarts something into something that everybody wants to see over. And the players were smart enough to know that I think the players are very interested in this tournament. They want it to be successful. They have a vested interest in it being successful since the PA is a part of it as well. So, like, I think they knew they wanted to put on something spectacular that people were going to talk about and want to see more of. So I think we're always going to go into the next Four Nations thinking it's going to be another epic, like, U.S.-Canada showdown like it was that first time. And that's the whole key.
And Canada took it so personally.
Yep.
You could tell that they really wanted to win that game, extend their winning streak and dominance on best because they don't have a junior hockey anymore. So, and they probably, from a cultural standpoint, the World Juniors is as big a deal as the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
In their land it is.
Yep.
And so this was huge.
Yep.
In Canada, and they lost. So it's incredible. This game Thursday night is everything to them. So, and that may mitigate the one thing about the, I sure hope McDavid doesn't get hurt and all the Edmonton fans, but at the same time, they're like, I bet you 9 out of 10 of them are like, go win this game and I'll forgive whatever happens after. Because as we used to be, told, that we used to be lectured back 20, 25 years ago, it is our game. Yeah, I'm going to keep reminding us because if you never had to tell us that before. We knew that. Now you have to tell us because you're not so sure.
Yep.
And so, there's a lot at stake there for them, and I get it. Remember the 2008 playoffs, Game 7, the Bruins got smoked.
Yes.
In Montreal.
Yes.
They had that great comeback in that series and great Game 6 at home, went up there from Game. That Game 7 presentation was incredible. It shook the building. It was unbelievable emotion. It was. I kept rubbing my eyes in this. It starts out with them projecting onto the ice the Webster's Dictionary Stanley Cup definition, read by John Beliveau.
Yeah.
And the fans just, from that point forward, it just went crazier and crazier, and it just built up and up and up and up and up. I'm thinking, this game's over. I might as well go home right now. And the game, unfolded exactly as the Montreal fans had hoped. And then they set the town on fire after that was done. Yes. So it was just a crazy, crazy night there. And that was the opening round of the playoffs. Can you imagine how they feel about this game Thursday night?
Yeah, no, that's it's a great point that you make, and I'm with you 100%. We're going to finish this episode off, Mick, with the tweet of the week and a question from our fans. Hello, Joe. My question, and Mick, my question to you. Firstly, why are the Bruins not interested in Swiss players? And secondly, I heard that Philip Kurashev is in question with the Chicago Blackhawks. What do you think of him? Kind regards from Switzerland, and that's at Dex Ginzin on Twitter. Ginzin, maybe. I don't think the Bruins have any bias against Swiss players, Mick. They obviously don't have any Swiss players in their lineup right now.
Oh, I heard them talking about a coffee machine. and let me tell you, they weren't picking up on the Swiss Miss. They were reaching for the coffee.
They're not neutral on the Swiss players?
Maybe they want Roger Federer. Now, I don't know where this stuff comes from. I used to wonder one thing that's kind of off topic here, but it relates to the question. There were like about 13 years in between the Bruins taking a player from the OHL in the top 3 rounds of the draft. The only exception was Matt Lashoff, who was from the state of New York.
Yep.
So you find Michael Hutchinson was the guy who broke the streak. The goalie, the journeyman goaltender. So, after Nick Boynton, it was a long time before they happened to, and, with Bradley, situated out in Western Canada, then you really kind of had a British Columbian slant to where the Bruins would, you say, what is going on here when the OHL is still putting out more hockey players than any other single entity to the NHL?
Yep.
But they was always told, no, we just look at, it's just whatever happened with the best player that was available. That's what we did. So, and how many Swiss players are in the NHL did he? Mike Milbury was once asked after Tonordi ran over one of the Bruins, if he was going to call the league, and he said, and his answer was, "I'd be more inclined to ask if he's available." So, this was when he was assistant GM to Harry Sinden, in the early '90s, after he'd given up the coach job. So, but yeah, I mean, Matt Zuccarello, how old is he now? Even though he's still playing well.
Yep.
I know the Rangers. Some of my Ranger fan friends hated to see Matt Zuccarello go because they thought he still had some game. They've been proven right.
Yep. And Nino Niederreiter still looks really good.
Not bad. I mean, he's become kind of a quiet third liner kind of a guy, but he's still serviceable.
Yep.
That's for sure.
And Mark Streit was a great defenseman for a long time.
He was a very good player.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he was kind of like Cale Makar without ridiculous speed.
Yes.
It was kind of like he played that. He had a very quick stick, could pinpoint and put a puck right on it in 1 second, 40 feet, right on the guy's tape.
Yep.
Streit was really good with the puck.
So I don't think there's any anti-Swiss bias or anything like that with the Bruins. I definitely don't. I just don't think there's enough. It's not. Switzerland is still not enough of a hockey factory to produce a ton of players, where I think they view it as, a mineable hockey.
Good word there, Joe.
You know what I mean? Like
good verb, mineable.
Yes, I don't think that it's a mineable enough locale for hockey talent for them to go full bore into it right now.
Or to be accused of avoiding them.
Right. Well, there definitely, it felt like to me there was an avoidance of Russian players for a long time with the Bruins. But
no question. 92 changed all of that.
Yeah, but they've drafted a few here and there, and some of them haven't worked out, like Koklachev. Like, he ended up shooting his way out of town, bad-mouthing the coach, and gets sent back.
Zinoviev was another one. He wound up becoming a very good player in the KHL and then a GM.
Yep.
But he did not like the demotion to Providence, and did not want to engage the process. That's one thing I'll say for Georgi Merkelov. That guy engages the process, and he lives it, and I'm sure the Bruins would love to see the day that he can play for them in the NHL as a regular.
Oh, 100%.
I'm not sure it's coming, but they love that kid.
No, I think so too. All right, so great question. Appreciate that. Mick, I appreciate you. We're going to get going here, but I'm going to thank our sponsors one more time. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Pleasure, Joe.
Everybody else out there, thank you for listening. We'll see you at the